Joining us now is Florida Congresswoman Cammack. She's a member of the House Homeland Security Committee. Great to have you with us, Congresswoman.
Hey, good to see you, John.
Well, what do you particularly want to know from this affidavit? What do we need to know as the American public here?
Oh, wow, where to start? You know, I think at the end of the day, it doesn't take a PhD to realize that Trump has wanted full transparency throughout this process from start to finish, and yet those in the FBI and the DOJ do not. And that is fueling the fire to speculation and, of course, various theories about why the FBI raid occurred in the first place, despite the fact that the National Archives was in communication with the Trump campaign throughout this year. I think that the American people deserve to know, certainly going into a very heated midterm election, we need to know that this wasn't politically motivated. Of course, all indications point to the fact that it was. So I believe it's in the best interest of the American people and the investigation to unseal as much as humanly possible without jeopardizing an investigation. So we'll hear shortly what the judge has to say, but my confidence in this judge is limited at best, given the size and scope of this administration's attack on the former president's private residence.
Yeah, and so Congresswoman, is at 1:03 right now here on the East Coast, so the hearing is about to get underway or has just begun. We continue to watch that there. But speaking of this judge, there has been death threats against FBI agents, also Bruce Reinhart, the judge, in the wake of this raid. Obviously, violence is never condoned, never acceptable. We didn't like seeing people protest outside the Supreme Court justices. It wasn't right when Kavanaugh's house had a person who wanted to assassinate him, so never the answer. But, you know, critics are trying to blame President Trump, even though he's been out there saying he'll do anything he can to turn down the temperature.
Yeah, you know, and that's the thing. I'll do something that the Democrats never did. I'll condemn any violence against any FBI agent right now because it's the right thing to do. This is transcending party politics at this point. As the wife of a first responder and as someone in the public sphere who receives death threats, this is absurd. No one should be receiving death threats. We absolutely need to bring the temperature down. Remember that we're Americans first, and that this party politics is dividing our nation more so than any policy ever could. So we need to actually get to the bottom of this investigation. If laws were broke, let's get to them. But in the meantime, speculation is not going to fix this problem. We need transparency, but we also need accountability. So if this is, in fact, a political witch hunt, which, as I said, indications are looking very strong in that direction, we need to get to the bottom of that, and people need to be held accountable. There should be consequences. But threatening public servants, threatening law enforcement, that will never be tolerated ever on any day of the week, at least not in our camp. And so I encourage people, let's withhold judgment until we know all the facts. Let's let this judge do the ruling, and let's let President Trump and his legal team get to the bottom of this.
Well, we should probably tell former CIA Director Michael Hayden that Cammack, a Republican, has just denounced violence because he seems to think that Republicans are the most treacherous political force he's encountered in his entire lifetime. This is where we should point out that General Michael Hayden was the director of the CIA. He was in charge of the NSA when they were busted for spying on Americans. But here is Hayden agreeing with an associate editor at the Financial Times who said, quote, "I've covered extremism and violent ideologies around the world over my career, have never come across a political force more nihilistic, dangerous, and contemptible than today's Republicans. Nothing comes close." Doesn't really fit you, I think, Congresswoman, considering we talked a couple of times, but just wanted to get your reaction to that. That's Michael Hayden, the CIA director, the NSA director who spied on America, calling Republicans the most treacherous political force he's ever seen.
You know, John, I think you and we could probably do an entire hour-long segment on the nefarious actions of some of our previous directors. And heck, we could go back just to last year when the director of the DOJ called concerned parents domestic terrorists for attending school board meetings. I'd say that we need to do some serious cleaning house when it comes to this administration and actually beyond. It's absolutely nuts that these folks who are in political appointed positions from that position are taking these stances. I'm sure that there's all kinds of violations, maybe even going so far as a Hatch Act violation here or there, as we talk about the politicization of these federal agencies, but more dangerously, the weaponization of them, using these agencies to go after political opponents. absolutely unacceptable. We need to get back to being Americans first.
And the problem, too, those comments are made and the media, legacy media, just gobbles them up,
Hayden
runs
was
with the narrative.
one of the guys who was saying that the Hunter laptop was Russian disinformation. The guy has no credibility still, but he now literally kind of calling for violence against Republicans. It is concerning. Yeah.